entitled Pilgrim's Problems, Turn Your Troubles into Triumphs on the Road to God's Front Door. Traveling problems. We've had those, and you've had those. In fact, if I had the time, I could tell you horror stories, I would say, horror stories about traveling, to different parts of the world. Not only in the language barriers, through language barriers, but also through some, near-death experiences. I was traveling from the Bao to Manila. I was hijacked in May 25, 2000, as part of the plane that was hijacked, by the way. So I could tell it to you some other time, my experience going through that. Very traumatic indeed, but then those things are part of reality. Pilgrim's Problems, again, based on Karl Hafner. And the reason why I chose this book is that I know Karl Hafner personally. I've listened to his presentations 2 times in a row in Las Vegas, Nevada, and also in New Jersey. We had meetings, and Karl Hafner was there to talk about this book. And so I said, I love it, and I'd like to present this one of these days. All of these are some of the problems. These are not all inclusive, but there could be other problems. Like, for example, failure, and the loneliness, anger, loss, resentment, guilt, pride, fear, greed, and futility. We'll talk about that in a bit. Now, the quick review of past imperfect pilgrims, but they are listed in God's honor roll in Hebrews 11. By faith, when they say honor roll, all of them have lived and died except Enoch. Okay, except Enoch. And here we have what you call burial ground at Westminster Abbey. How many of you here have traveled to Westminster Abbey? I hope Ms. Smokey here has traveled to Westminster Abbey. It's a kind of a cross church. It's a cathedral, very famous all over the world, of course, in London. You'll see that in a lot of pictures. Coronation, Prince William's wedding, burial, all the elites in the United Kingdom, Scotland, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, and England. And all of those there or whatnot, very familiar place. But Westminster Abbey has this honor roll, rather the Bible has this, Hebrews 11 is considered Westminster Abbey, some of those in the honor roll. For example, we have Abel, the first martyr. Okay? So Abel. Then we have Enoch. You remember that he walked with God. And the third person, Noah, he had some problems. He got drunk, at the end of the flood celebration. What happened? Enoch, brother Noah, got drunk. We have Abraham, he lied to the Egyptians about Sarah. Because he didn't want Sarah to be taken away as wife to the princess who kind of fell in love with her because she was pretty. Can you imagine that an old lady at 75 years old, still so pretty? I remember when we arrived in Loma Linda, coming from Africa, Loma Linda, California. Neighbor was actually the wife of the former Dr. Ritsley, the late Dr. Ritsley of Malawi College. And Dr. Ritsley we were very close friends. In fact, he was the one who really forced me to go into music. I said, Danny, you cannot finish a degree at Malawi College if you don't take piano lessons, if you don't take organ lessons. I want you to learn cello and French horn and all those instruments. I said, Dr. Ritsley, I don't think that's the way to go. But he said, no, I prefer that you do that, and I will be. And he promised me that, he said, if you marry a musician, I am going to pay for all the expenses during your wedding. That was Dr. Ritsley. And then when I arrived in Bacolod, right there as a teacher, I got sick. You know what he did? He picked me up and took me to Bacolod Sanitarium Hospital and then put me in a private room. I said, Danny, I'm going to pay for all of these. But again, may I remind you, you have to marry a musician. And I overcut. And I said, I don't have to marry a musician. I need to learn myself how to play these instruments. That's why I went into piano, pedagogy, choral pedagogy, and playing also the cello and also the violin and other instruments. Because he said, you have to do that in order to serve the Lord. And I said, well, I don't know if I will be able to do that. But anyway, here is Abraham, beautiful wife, old lady. And so this old lady next door to us, as soon as we arrived in Loma Linda, we bought a house. And then the next neighbor had it known, unbeknownst to all of us for some time, that she was the wife of Dr. Ritsley. And she came out one day and said, "Good morning, welcome to the community." And I said, "Yes, ma'am, and who are you?" I said, "You know what, I'm the wife of Dr. Ridsley, William Ridsley." At the time, Dr. Ridsley was still alive. He was not involved in an accident in Tanzania. And anyway, I said, "You know what? Just before leaving Africa, I invited Dr. Ridsley to perform a concert because he was in college where I was working. And so anyway, I said, your husband came to Malamulo and performed a concert for me. And I played for him in the piano, accompanied him for more than an hour, just singing, playing instruments." So she said, "You know what? My own husband, a genius who has forgotten me." Because he has forgotten the wife. Of course, being a genius has abandoned the wife. So here I am, abandoned, but I'm living nicely, and I am here in Lowell and just enjoying life. But, Dr. Ridsley, an old lady, 75, 76 at that time, still looking very pretty. Flowing hair, white hair, of course, because she was blonde. And very nice feature. The skin was unblemished. Nothing to put some, what you call those fake, yes. And he was Moses. Yeah, he was honored in Hebrews 11, buried at Westminster Abbey in the Bible. But the thing is, he was a murderer. And here was Rahab, a prostitute, and honored also in Hebrews 11. And here is Samson. He was a macho glanderer. He needs the talk of Dr. Phil or Dr. Ruth or Dr. Seuss and all of those. And of course there's David, also a adulterer and murderer. See, the lessons to learn, common thread woven in all these stories of people who have traveled. In our weakness, we are made strong. Samson had a great weakness, even if we thought he was very strong. But in our weakness, we are made strong. In our triumphs, we are called to faith. And in our faith, we are made perfect. Hebrews 11, 39, 40. These were all commended for their faith. God had planned something better for us, so that only together with us would they be made perfect. Failure, let's consider this. And for today, we will just study this. I had a lot of failures in my life. You think that resume too long, and I think Pastor Navarro, what is needed only, he died last week, and to become a obituary. Introductions usually like that. When you get old like me, it becomes like that already an obituary. But here, Psalm 73:26, my flesh and my heart may fail, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever. And then in Lamentations 3:22 and 23, because of the Lord's great love, we are not consumed, for His compassions never fail, and they are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. In fact, there's a song that's composed about this text. So there is that. The failures. 2 bumps were leaning against a tree. I'm putting them, most of them here, by the way, because I'm kind of visual, and I'm sure some of you are too, so you can read and see and follow along. And the one, of course, is sick and tired of begging for food and sleeping in the cold and rain, wearing torn clothes, said, I'm tired of, this kind of life. And the second bum, of course, you know what a bum is? Bum is somebody that's just out there roaming around, like some kids, some Muslim kids, a lot of these, or bajaus. They're not called bujaus, but bajaus. And the Muslims, they would go around, call, bantay ko call. They're the ones that would come to the parking lot and say, call, bantay ko call. Okay, at the end, when hindi mo rin hata call, no? Beggars. And in fact, I was talking to one of them in Muslim. Because, I grew up among the Muslims. I was born among the Muslims. And then we lived in Marawi City. And then, of course, and here he was, and I have a lot of friends that are Muslims. I go to Marawi every now and then. And so here's this boy who came around, call, bantay ko call, ba hindi atag mo call? I said, I don't know, miyakalalang ka. Miyakalalang ka. And he said, Muslim ka pala, sir? I said, Muslim, from Marawi? I said, yeah, from Marawi. And so he said, sige sir, cheers na lang sir. Imagine that just by talking in Muslim, of course, he changed his mind. I said, but actually I gave him 25 after that. I said, kids like those, begging for food and thinking that that's all their life. And I told him, you can study. Sir, nag-aaral ako, sir. Kasi ayokong makatulad kay Umbrato. Or kay Sinito. He doesn't want to be like the rebels, Muslim rebels. I said, that's good. And I'm studying, he said, but I cannot resist having girlfriends. I said, I'm not talking about girlfriends yet. I said, you're only a second-year boy, but looks very short to me. So I said, no, you're still so young. But anyway, here, the second man, Bob, said, why don't you get a job? If you're failing, why don't you stand up? You cannot just wait there and say, just because you failed, you're not going to move on. Karen Maine says, nature shouts of this beginning again God, the one who is God of risings again, who never tires of fresh starts. So I like the song that it says Manibago and have a fresh start. Nativities, Renaissances, in persons or in culture, God is a God of starting over, of Genesis and regenesis. He composting life's sour fruits, moldering, rank, and decomposing. He applies the organic matter to our new day chances. He freshens the world with dew. He hydrates withered human hearts with his downpouring spirit. And Paul 6 says, reconciliation is not weakness or cowardice. It demands courage, nobility, generosity, sometimes heroism and overcoming of oneself rather than of one's adversary. You see that already. Sometimes failures. And I accept those. I said, I'm not a perfect man, but I tried my best. And today, of course, we're glad and we're thankful to God that Mount College is still moving on and we're progressing. And, not just crawling, of course. And I always tell them, that's why I caught that word, struggling. I don't think you are in a struggling position or in a position, the Houston Cardinal Hospital we're talking about. It's in a good shape, in good financial picture. And most of our hospitals in the Philippines, of course, as you know, are all struggling financially, except Manila Adventist Medical Center because of the school. Their programs there, the Masters in Business program, RATTEC, physical therapy, and the other programs that they have. Manila Sanitarian Hospital, of course, or Mindanao Adventist Hospital, Sanitarium, has moved into offering some degree programs. In fact, they were kind of castigated by the AAA for offering education and computers, competing with Malawi College, and also the other allied health programs. You see, so that's what has been happening in our hospitals in order to stay afloat. But here, Holy Sanitarium, of course, is very stable. In the Sanitarium is, Valencia is, and right there, right in between, kind of in the border, but patient count is improving, and we're hoping that we just gave them recently, I think, about 13 million in order to really, so right now the facade is being worked out. They're becoming now really looking like a hospital, not a bodega. So we're trying to push them to finish this, working on the facade. And of course, there's still a tug of war, kind of a battle between the division, the union, and Malawi College. They're really wanting Malawi College to be falling directly under the umbrella of the church. Right now, of course, it's really run by Malawi College, according to the Constitution and bylaws. And the vice chair is the president of the hospital, and so forth. So that's in the Constitution and bylaws. But as soon as I came in, I did not assert that. And I said the union should, because so the church can feel that it really belongs to the church and not to Malawi College. But but the thing is, in order for the hospital to survive, Malawi College has to come in. So every now and then we will give them 5 million, and then 10 million now, and then like that. So that's how we do it. In order that our interests, school of nursing, affiliation, and the other programs later, we're wanting to offer next year now medical technology. And then gradually increase that to other courses. So that's why we're protecting our interests at Valencia Sanitarium Hospital. The problem is that the division and the union is telling us, please, Forget about your constitution, change that, change everything, and then have the union take over and the division. I said, can you help that hospital? Can you make it, grow fast if you would take over? Because we're getting proud now, we're getting kind of arrogant as a non-Greek college because we have the means to support that institution. But we're wanting to protect our interests because what happened to the hospital? For example, in the Retirement Hospital, bless this man that really pushed us out of us, like in olden days, in 1953. After a while, we had Amidst and so forth. So we didn't want that kind of experience. Very painful to us. So that's why we're still holding on and hoping that in the next few weeks we will have a better relationship with the union and with the division. We'll see how it goes. Okay. Anyway, Jack Selliers, he died a brutal death in Java, a prisoner of war camp, just before peace was declared in 1945. Jack Selliers is from South Africa, and so he has this name, Jack Selliers, although kind of mixed of British and the French. But Dutch actually he was. He tried to save his friend's life, who was to be executed for gross violation of camp rules. And in an attempt to save his life, he approached the Japanese officer, kissed him on both cheeks, and his comrades, and of course he was killed because of doing that, for kissing the Japanese officer. He was kind of insulted, and so he was killed, but not right away killed. So he was shot and still alive, and he was buried alive. His head was up there. He only died the next day with a bruised head that was shot by the officer, and that type of thing. But anyway, Jack Selliers had a big problem because he made a big mistake in the past. He had a big failure. Follow the story. Before he died, he recorded his life story, wrapping his journal in a piece of military ground cloth, buried it in the cell floor where it was later discovered. And in it, the story of Selliers' triumph over failure is preserved. The story goes on. He betrayed his brother. Selliers was the oldest of 4 children, 4 siblings, 2 girls, 2 boys. 2 girls died of typhoid fever, of an epidemic in South Africa, but only the 2 boys lived. The thing is, there's just a contrast between these 2 boys. Jack's incredibly handsome, flawless skin, face punctuated by blue eyes, crowned with flowing blonde hair. So he must be like Solomon or what? People would stare at him, stop the conversation. He was a natural leader with keen intellect, sharp tongue, natural athletic abilities, and he loved outdoors and animals. But on the contrary, his brother was what? Was ugly, I would say. Although some people would say, do not use that ugly, it's very unkind word. Just say homely, paras balay lang, dili ko parsada. Okay? So, it was like that. So homely, ayun, yung ugly, ayun, sakit ka kanya. Ikan putang mga sumidawang itsura. Wala niyo nila. The contrary, his brother was different in possible way. He was short, awkward, poor at academics, and as athletic as was wearing ice skates. So really derogatory about him. Hair was thick, dark, and grew menacingly low into his forehead. Skin was Mediterranean olive. Eyes burned of an intense radiant blackness, which made Selliers to say, I could never look in them. This was the brother now saying, I could never look in them without feeling curiously disturbed and uncomfortable. So have you noticed that if you are looking at somebody with some deformities in the body, you don't want to stare at that person. Because you would feel, either he would feel insulted or you would feel humiliated. You see, something like that. So that's why you don't want to. Of course, you don't want to. And here is the brother who was looking really not quite normal. Okay? So in addition, his ugly brother had a razor-edged hump between his shoulders. Okay? His mother padded his jackets to try and camouflage that awful projection. At initiation in school for freshmen, this was in a school for the elite. And his brother was supposed to be initiated first. And when you're initiated, you'll be asked to bare yourself almost naked, and then they will ask him, they have padding and whatever. And those of you who are frat members here could very well relate to that. I hope nobody is. But anyway, you would go through that experience. And here was this boy who was to be initiated to be accepted in the school. That's how they do it in British countries, by the way, or British Commonwealth countries. And so here was this boy who was looking really all deformed and having a lot of problems, rather inconsistencies in his body. Here was Jax, who was in the upper echelon, was an officer, and who was supposed to be one of those that would, one of those that would do the initiation. But what happened was that he denied all that and subjected the boy to the ridicule of the friends and those that were initiated. You see, the brother was naturally put to a big embarrassment. And since that time, the boy got so frustrated, he could not qualify to be in that school, and he had to leave. You see, to be admitted in the school, 7 years failed. He was supposed to be an instrument, because the captain said, are there some problems of his body so that we don't have to subject him to this? And Celia said, it's okay. He was denying. It's okay. He can go through that experience. So that's why he said he failed miserably. And look what happened. He was already 7 years, went on to serve in the military during World War II. And in Palestine, where military service took him, he got sick of malaria. Doomed to die, he had a dream while having delirium. He dreamed he saw Jesus, and Jesus had told him, go to your brother and make your peace with him, even as I had to do with my need of you. So that's what he had in his dream. So what happened, he eventually got well after that and took the effort to sneak away from the military in Palestine and went back to South Africa to ask forgiveness from the brother. You see? And thus the two separated lives were rejuvenated and received spiritual healing from the Holy Spirit. After 7 years had asked forgiveness for failing his younger brother before, that same Spirit is available to crown with failure today. See, what happened was that the brother recoiled and he went into farming because he could not go to school because of the embarrassing kind of features that he had. And of course, he eventually married, had children, and he was out in the farm. Here, Celiers had to sneak out from the military and go to his farm, and his brother, of course, rejoiced over that experience. And we have personal failures. I remember my first recital in Antigua with the Mission Academy was a total failure. I was already on stage ready to play my piece, and all of a sudden I blacked out. I could not remember any note of that piece. And so I just sat there for a while, and hoping that the teacher would come to the rescue. And here, my teacher, I still could remember her. She's in Loma Linda right now. We're neighbors in Loma Linda. And she would always remind me, Dan, one who was on Hamburg. But anyway, basta na ako, ikaw na lang tukar yan. Hindi ako nakamot ang bungis na. And so she would not play. But anyway, during those days, I was only 4th grade, I believe. And that was my first recital, and I don't remember any note. And here comes my teacher coming up and said, Dan, ako. And he said like that. And so immediately I was reminded of all the notes I was able to play it. But it was a failure to me. So embarrassing. I said, Lord, have mercy. Next time I'm not going to play anymore. After that. But then after that I became the bugis,